Good afternoon to all the students of class 12. Today I will take up the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers from your reader Flamingo. Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, written by Adrienne Rich. Adrienne Rich had a lifespan from 1929 to 2012, and she was born in Baltimore, Maryland, USA. And she is a recipient of a number of awards, including the 1996 the Tanning Award for Mastery in the Art of Poetry, the Lannan Foundation's 99 Lifetime Achievement Award, the Commonwealth Lifetime Award in Literature, and the National Book Award that she received was a great feather in her cap. And her claim to fame was because of her involvement in the contemporary women's movement. And she wanted to voice the feelings on behalf of all the women and to make people aware of the kind of treatment that was meted out to the women of her age. Now, this poem, Aunt Jennifer's Tiger, is clearly a feminist poem. It's a feminist poem. It is critical of the male world. It is critical of the male chauvinism, patriarchy, and the terrifying and oppressing moments that men gave to women. And in this poem, Aunt Jennifer is a stereotype for all the other women of her age. And how there was so much of domination, there was suppression, subjugation, humiliation, and all their freedom was curtailed completely. Now, to create an alternate world, because she was very unhappy with the kind of atmosphere that she was living in, so she created an alternate world of freedom by embroidering certain tigers on a panel, on a screen. And that was her make-believe world of escape, She created that because through that art, through that embroidery of the tigers, these ferocious, bold animals who's the king of the jungle, as we can say. So over here, she was totally suppressed. So in contrast to her scenario, in contrast to whatever she was going through, she created these animals so that she wanted, whatever she wanted to be, whatever she wanted to achieve, that she could not achieve in her real life. So she created these animals. She created these tigers prancing about, walking independently, free, with a lot of freedom. There was no suppression, no subjugation, and no expectations to be met with. Now, the poem has 3 quatrains. Quatrains are 4-lined stanzas, and the rhyme scheme is in couplets. Okay. Now, the first stanza of the poem, it highlights Aunt Jennifer's fears. The second, her slavery, her domination. And the third is her ordeals or hardships and the trials and tribulations that she faced in life. Now, through this poem, the poet wants to highlight the struggles of the spirit and racial and religious injustice and oppression of an apparently upper middle class woman who can express her desire for freedom only in her art. She couldn't voice her feelings. She couldn't break free from those norms. So she had to live with those norms. So she created an alternate world of freedom through her art. Now, Aunt Jennifer, as I told you, is a stereotype for all other women who are facing similar conditions. They were tortured and terrified in this male-dominated world. And she recoils within, and she finds solace in the embroidery or the art that she creates, longing for this individual freedom. So she wanted that individual freedom, which she knew she could never get. So to find that, to give vent to her feelings and her thoughts, she ventilated it through her art. And she made those creatures who were free, independent, which she wanted to be like. Okay, so I will read the poem and I will explain it side by side. This goes back to very old times. Like we say, in olden days, they used to make fire screens, and with a cross stitch. And this is the art that is there. Now we have two personas here. We have a persona that is within, and we have a persona that is outward. So the outward persona, she was living in a state of terror, but her inside persona wanted liberation, wanted freedom, and the art is an example of her inner persona. She could not exhibit it verbally, so she tried to exhibit it through her art, and she interpreted it through her art. Okay. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of the world of green. Now, Aunt Jennifer's tigers, the very fact that whose tigers are there, they are Aunt Jennifer's tigers, because she is the one who has created those tigers. So the ownership lies with Aunt Jennifer. So they are Aunt Jennifer's tigers, and they prance across a screen. They're moving about independently, enjoying, prancing about, gaily, happily, without any kind of fear or any kind of threat. So they're just moving about happily, prancing across a screen. A screen is that panel on which Aunt has embroidered those tigers. The screen or the panel, this is an image of art. The picture of art has been created. Bright topaz denizens. Bright topaz, yellowish, brownish. So bright color, bright topaz denizens. Denizens are dwellers, inhabitants of a world of green. Their natural habitat is the forest, the world of green, where they live independently, where they move about freely, wherever they want to go, hunting for their prey, or just moving around fearlessly, boldly. So, of the world of green, that is the forest. Now, this is all imagery that has been created. What is imagery actually? It's a picture created through words. Imagery is a picture created through words. So, when we are reading, we can visualize that. A bright topaz tiger and moving around in a forest. You can actually make it come alive if you go through it with that image in mind. They do not fear the men. They do not fear the men means they are fearless. They are not scared. They are bold. They are courageous. And they do not fear the men beneath the tree. She has also in that image shown that there is men sitting under the tree. Now here, the men could imply normal men, or it could also imply the hunters. So they are not scared of anybody. The men sitting, the idea that she wants to bring about is, that is, they are very courageous, they're very bold, and they are very, very fearless. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. So Aunt Jennifer's created tigers that are prancing about, moving about, walking about across the screen, and they're bright in color, and they are moving around in a world of green. That's their natural habitat. That's a forest, and they are bold and fearless and courageous, and they are not scared of the men also who are sitting beneath the tree. They pace in sleek chivalric certainty. They pace, they move about from here to there in the forest in sleek. In a very sleek is actually means glossy, smooth, streamlined. So here the tigers, they are being described here. They pace, they move about in sleek, in an elegant manner, chivalric, chivalry and certainty. Two words now, C. Chivalry and certainty. Sorry, it's not an alliteration. Okay, so they're moving about very elegantly, in a very sophisticated manner, in a very honorable manner. Chivalry. This word chivalry dates back to the knighthood days that we had, a long time ago, and in these empires that we had, and there were knights and these soldiers. So they had a certain code of conduct to follow for themselves. So they worked through various virtues, moralistic virtues, and they were very, very dignified in their behavior. So chivalry, honorable, that we can say over here. So they moved about in sleek, in an elegant, in a chivalric manner, and certainty. Certainty is surety. This surety or certainty over here brings about the confidence that these tigers had. They were bold, fearless, and confident. Okay, so here through this imagery, the tigers are actually appearing to come to life, the way she has created and the way the poet has written it. Okay, so they pace about in a sleek and an elegant manner and in a very honorable manner with a lot of confidence. Next stanza. Aunt Jennifer's fingers, fluttering through her wool, find even the ivory needle hard to pull. Now she's embroidering, so she's using a needle, and the needle is not the usual needles that we use today. It was an ivory needle. Ivory, what is ivory? Ivory is the tusks of the elephants, so, and very, very expensive. And elephants are sometimes poached, illegal killing of elephants due to this ivory, because lots of things and lots of objects are made out of ivory. Now, there was a picture in the above lines about the men beneath the trees. Probably they could be hunters. And here again, we do have the pinpoint at maybe, that ivory, that they are hunted, how these animals are hunted for their expensive ivory, their tusks. Now, this ivory needle, it should not have been very difficult for her to pull. But this pulling hard of the ivory needle, it pertains to the struggle in her life. Just as she's struggling with the needle to pierce through that fabric, similarly, in her life was a very, very big struggle. And she finds even the ivory needle hard to pull. She doesn't have that strength. She doesn't have the strength, and she doesn't have the courage, or she's not in the right frame of, a good state of mind, and she's finding it very difficult. So the struggle with pulling the needle means the struggle that she's going through in her marital life. Now, Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering. Now, fluttering is, you see a butterfly fluttering her wings, you see women, fluttering their lashes. So it talks about delicacy, something very fragile, something very, very, very dear and very sweet and soft and fragile. So her fingers are fluttering through her wool. So that is the case of this lady. Aunt's fingers fluttering through her wool. Find even the ivory needle very hard to pull. Now her hands are trembling. Okay, her hands are trembling. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool, find even the ivory needle hard to pull. She is so weak and she doesn't have the energy or the strength to even use that ivory needle to embroider. Okay. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. Now, till now we've had no reference of the uncle, but where do we come across the reference of the uncle is the wedding band, that she was married to this uncle. Now, this wedding band, it symbolizes, when you exchange these wedding rings, it symbolizes love, it symbolizes protection, it symbolizes understanding, and to be together. But there is irony in this wedding band, because seeing Aunt's condition, there is no love, there is no protection, there is only domination, there is only subjugation, and she is not getting her due, the respect and dignity that a woman should get. Now, this massive weight, massive means, something that you just can't handle, too much of weight. So now this is a hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech. Hyperbole. Now, hyperbole means an exaggeration. It's been exaggerated to that extent to make the reader realize what the aunt was going through. It was unimaginable. Whatever she was facing, it was unimaginable. So that is an hyperbole. The massive weight of uncle's wedding band. And it's ironic because, as I told you, there should be love, understanding, protection, togetherness, and but that all was missing here. And that band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. Sits heavily. There is no love. There is nothing good about it, and it shows that her marital status is really in the doldrums. And this poor woman is not getting her due, is not getting her respect, is not getting that love, is not getting, whatever she needed to be as a partner of this uncle. Okay. So here it sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. Now this wedding band, it's like a circle. So here it also means that, when you are, it's so stifling, it's around the finger. The ring is around the finger. So in a way, it's like a noose, when you wear a noose around, when you send somebody to be hanged, it's like fitting into the noose and then the noose is tightened. So here also the band symbolizes a very stifling and a burdensome marriage. Very stifling. Choking. There's no, freedom. There is no nicety about this wedding. So it's very stifling and very burdensome marriage. Because the husband or the uncle is very, very authoritative. Very, very authoritative or domineering. A domineering husband, an authoritative husband who always imposes on the aunt. And the aunt, of course, is bound by the vows of marriage, and she has certain social norms, expected norms to be fulfilled. It's not easy for a woman to break off. So the society also expects certain norms to be followed from the woman. Now, so here the ring also symbolizes the constraints of married life, and they turn her into a meek, submissive wife. Meek and submissive. She can't voice her feelings, she can't raise her voice, she can't give vent to her feelings because she is so dominated, suppressed, subjugated, and overpowered by this male chauvinistic husband. Okay. The last stanza. When aunt is dead, her terrified hands will be still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. Now, when aunt is dead, even after she dies, the wedding band is still going to be there on her finger. So even in death, she will not get any respite. She will not get any freedom. So when aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie. Terrified hands. Now over here, who is terrified? The hands or the aunt? So it is the aunt who is terrified, but the fear has been transferred to the hands because the hands are fluttering, they're shaking, they're trembling. So this is another figure of speech which we call transferred epithet. The aunt is terrified of her husband. She's terrified of this wedding. But what has the poet tried to show? That the fear from the aunt has been passed on to the hands, have been transferred to the hands, and the hands are depicting that terror which the aunt is facing. So this is a transferred epithet. Okay. Still ringed again, the word ringed, still bound with, the constraints are still there. She's not free. Still ringed with ordeals. Ordeals are the trials and the hardships she was mastered by. So even in death, there is no respite for her. She was mastered by. Now the word ringed and the word master creates another imagery. if you've been to a circus, you see how these tigers and these lions, they are, forcibly, they are whipped and they are trained to show their act before the public. So the ringmaster uses the whip and he lashes at them, mercilessly and beats them. And can you imagine for the king of the forest, like the lion and all, to be beaten up like that and to be whipped and to be made to do those acts? It must be very, very humiliating, though the animals don't understand it, but the idea behind in poetry, the connotations that are there. So the husband can be compared to a ringmaster who was subjugating and dominating over his wife, just as a ringmaster overpowers or dominates the tigers and the lions or the animals in the circus. And they're made to perform forcibly, forcibly. So the wife, we can say, is exactly like a slave. Whatever the husband commanded or ordered, the wife had to fulfill that. So she was a slave. He mastered her to it all as a slave. The tigers in the panel, and this, the whipping or the ringmaster could also, the connotation could be domestic violence, which is even today, we can talk about this domestic violence, how women are beaten up or they are, I'm not saying that the aunt maybe was not beaten up because they had some, maybe a little bit of decency there, but it's not only beating up, it's verbal abuse also, that is also a kind of domestic violence or a domestic problem. And the ring over here, as I told you previously, it's like a noose, very suffocating, choking. It almost takes life out of you. The tigers in the panel that she made, that aunt made, will go on, prancing proud and unafraid. So the tigers that she has created, they are not alive. Okay, that's embroidery. That's a art form that she has created. So they will continue to prance like that for centuries, or that piece of art till it's destroyed. It will be there for posterity, for many generations to come. We'll go on prancing proud. Now here we have an alliteration, P prancing and P proud. And unafraid, fearless, nothing can stop these tigers from moving around, from doing what they want to. Now here we see that why did aunt create these tigers who are bold, chivalric, confident, courageous, fearless? Why did she create animals like that? Because she wanted to be like those tigers. She wanted to break free and be like those tigers, but it was not possible for her. So she recoils into her own little world of imagination, and she creates this little world of fantasy for herself by creating those tigers, all that she wanted. She wanted freedom, she wanted to do whatever she wanted to do, freedom, independence, and liberty. So all the things that she desired, she knew she could never get them. So in order to give vent to her feelings, what she wanted, she created these creatures who were a total contrast to Aunt Jennifer in reality. So all that she visualized for herself in her imagination, she brought that out and she gave that, all that she wanted to be, she gave it all to those tigers through her embroidery. That is why, because all that she wanted, she desired. So in this we can say even the most timid person, even the most scared person does desire to be free, does desire to be bold, to be able to get over their fright and fear. So the desire is within. So everybody desires it. So Aunt also desired to be independent, to be free, and, to be able to carry on life as she wanted to. But she knew that was not possible in a patriarchy, in a male-dominated society with a male chauvinist as a husband. So that is why she created those tigers, so that she could give vent to her feelings, to be like those tigers. Okay. Okay. Now, if we come across to the theme of the poem, well, it's a feminist poem, as I told you, and it revolves around the theme of male chauvinism and gender conflicts, gender, male and female. And the theme of victimization of the women by their male counterparts has been starkly or clearly brought about in the poem, making a forceful expression of the evils of patriarchy. Evils of patriarchy. Now, Aunt Jennifer is totally victimized by her male chauvinist husband, and she suffers the oppression of her husband, and she knows that she will never be able to liberate herself. So she creates, either by custom or by law, she will not be able to liberate herself. That is why she created an alternate world for herself of freedom, one which she can inhabit or she can be a part of only in her imagination. So it all talks about male dominance, male chauvinism, gender bias, gender inequality. So that is the theme. Now, the title of the poem, Aunt Jennifer's Tiger, is absolutely appropriate as it refers to the tapestry or the piece of art that Aunt Jennifer has embroidered, because it contains some ferocious, proud, fearless, courageous, and prancing tigers. And the title also suggests the tiger is a symbol of terror. Similarly, the aunt's husband, the uncle, was also a symbol of terror, like those tigers. And she was in constant threat or constant fear of him, and she felt trapped and suffocated in her marriage with this uncle. And she felt like that her husband was the master and she was a tame animal or a timid animal, and she must carry out all his commands. So the title is absolutely appropriate. Okay. Now we come on to, excuse me, the images and symbols that the poet has used. Various images and symbols have been used to bring to highlight the chauvinism of man and the oppression of women in their hands. Okay. Now the tiger, the first one is tiger, has been used as a symbol of terror and oppression, which they try to work out or which is perpetrated on women, like Aunt Jennifer by the male world. Then the tiger also symbolizes on the other side the freedom of spirit. So please remember there are two. The tiger symbolizes, one is the terror of the male member of male dominance, and the other, because she created those tigers, so that is the freedom of spirit, which Aunt Jennifer dreamt about. So she created those tigers to be in her little world, her own little world of freedom. The next one, so freedom of spirit, remember. The next is freedom of spirit, which Aunt dreams about. Bright topaz, the color that has been used, bright yellowish brown color of the tiger skin. And in comparison to that, we see, there's bright yellow color, topaz color. Then we have the green, which is also bright for the forest and everything, which shows, happy moments, or bright colors always highlight your positivity. Now, in the case of Aunt, they've only used one color, and that is the ivory, which is also not absolutely white. It is off-white kind of a thing, or sometimes white also. So nothing very, it was dull and monotonous in her life. Okay, the image of fluttering wool. It highlights the wool is fluttering in her hands, in her fingers when she's embroidering. It highlights the extensive oppression of women. Aunt Jennifer is so victimized. She's so victimized and oppressed that her frail fingers, her delicate fingers, they seem to be fluttering. They cannot carry or hold the weight of the ivory needle or that wool which is so light. Her struggling with the ivory needle suggests the loss of her individual identity. She doesn't have an identity of her own at all, you know. So that is another thing. Why? Because it is under the weight of uncle's domination, and he has actually terrorized her, both in body and mind, you know, not only physically that way, but mentally also. She is totally terrorized by the way this uncle deals with her or treats her. And as I told you, aunt is a stereotype for the other women also. So fluttering wool, it highlights extensive oppression of women. Next symbol is uncle's wedding band. It symbolizes the suppression of women in matrimony. Matrimony, when you get married, in your marital status. Like I told you, the band is supposed to symbolize love, protection, togetherness, you know, understanding. But here, ironically, it did not symbolize anything of that. It only symbolized oppression of women by custom and by law. And it also symbolizes male authority and dominance, okay? Because for some people, for some men, women are just mere possessions. You know, they possess a wife, so it's okay, that's enough. Beyond that, they don't want to reach out or to actually feel that a woman is also a living entity. She also has her requirements. She also has her dignity. She also has her self-respect. But certain men do not consider women to come to that level. Next is ringed with ordeals. This is an image used by the poet to express the struggles of the spirit, the racial and religious injustice and oppression that aunt and many other women actually suffer, but they can never complain about it. They can never express it against it. So no one knows what trauma Aunt Jennifer must have gone through. She was completely ringed by ordeals. Okay. Next one is repetition of Aunt Jennifer and tigers. Why has the name and this tigers been repeated? This is to create an ambience of horror, a horrifying ambience of the oppressor, you know, the one who's dominating, and the oppressed. Because if there is an oppressor, there is an oppressed also, the person who is dominated. The theme of male chauvinism runs throughout the poem, and creating a fearsome atmosphere of tigers. It seems as if the tigers are on a prowl, looking for the victim, you know, looking for a prey or looking for a victim. That's how the men have been analyzed in this poem, that tigers on a prowl, and whenever they get a chance, they just attack and create terror only, looking around for the prey. And now here I would just like to add over here that maybe, you know, aunt died, yes, but the art that she created, the panel or the screen is also a symbol, because that's a symbol of art. And art outlives man. You know, like the aunt had died, but that panel that she had embroidered, that would be there for posterity, for generations to come who could see them. Now, the very fact that aunt created that, the world of tigers on that panel, and she wanted to be like that, so she could voice her feelings not verbally, but she voiced it through her art. So the spark that was there, I mean, the spark of revolt maybe, or the spark that there would be a change in times to come, that is very, very, positive over here, because at least through the art, in some way or the other, she was able to create what she wanted. And maybe for others, that would be a clue to, you know, to pick up from there and then take on this fight further. So that could just be another connotation. Now the rhyme, I told you the poem is in quatrains, 4 lines, but the rhyming is in couplets, and the rhyme pattern is AA, BB, CC. Okay. I would like to do a few questions with you. What does the expression Aunt Jennifer's tigers imply? So Aunt Jennifer's tigers mean that Aunt Jennifer has she's embroidered a panel with tigers prancing around boldly, fearlessly, and the poet refers to them as Aunt Jennifer's tigers because they are her creation. She has created them, and the tigers are her work of art. What does prancing tigers symbolize? Prancing tigers are a symbol of the spirit of freedom. And that spirit of freedom is within Aunt Jennifer. It is inside, within her, the spirit, but it remains subdued. So, because of the fear of her male counterpart. So, prancing tigers means that they are moving around freely. That spirit is not subjugated, is not suppressed. That is why the tigers are prancing, because they are free. Not only physically, but they are free mentally also and spiritually also. Okay. Why are they referred to as denizens of a world of green? That is their natural habitat. The tigers symbolically refer to the male counterpart, and over here, one is because they are natural inhabitants of the forest, the green jungle, or the green world. And the world of green can also symbolize the male animal instinct, because we're talking about male chauvinism, male dominance here. So the green could also symbolize symbolize the male animal instinct. You know, only those men who have that animal instinct will ill-treat their wives. Otherwise, if a sane person, a man, would never torture or ill-treat his better half, you know. And another connotation could also be, it could also symbolize the evil and the viciousness of male dominance and jealousy. Male dominance and jealousy. Okay. What qualities of the tiger are highlighted here? So, fearlessness, then they're ferocious, and they are bold, they are courageous, they are confident, they are streamlined, they are elegant, they are sophisticated. So all this has been brought out in the tigers that have been created on the panel. And in contrast, we see that Aunt Jennifer is so nervous, she's so timid in contrast to those wild animals that she has created. Okay. They pace in sleek, chivalric certainty. Explain. The movement of the tigers is very sleek, sophisticated, you know, and stealthy. They move about very, you know, how they, especially when they're moving around, not at a very fast pace, they're not running, but they're walking in a stealthy manner, and they're very sure of themselves, and they are majestic, they are elegant, and they are ferocious and fearless, and they're sure of their purpose. They're gallant and confident. Very, very gallant and confident and chivalric. And they move ahead undeterred. Undeterred means not afraid of any obstacles. The men sitting under the tree could be an obstacle, but they are not afraid of that also. Okay. Why do Aunt Jennifer's fingers flutter through her wool? Aunt Jennifer is a victim of gender oppression. Okay, at the hands of her husband. So she's nervous and she's so terrified that her hands seem to shake and tremble and flutter whenever she sits down to embroider. You know, sometimes when you become a nervous wreck, when you're so scared of somebody, when you're petrified of somebody, then what happens? Then you become a nervous wreck. You just cannot be your normal self. And the fear dominates you so much that you actually begin to, behave like that with trembling hands or shaky this thing, and you're absolutely low on confidence. Okay. Why did she find it hard to pull the ivory needle? She finds it hard to pull the ivory needle because she's so suppressed under this weight of the male domination, and she has become a nervous wreck, as I just said, and she finds it difficult to pull that ivory needle also. She doesn't have that much of courage, she doesn't have that much of stamina, she doesn't have that strength because she is shattered completely. the mental suppression, physical is you, maybe you're slapped, you're beaten, and after a while you forget. But mental suppression is something that can literally kill you. It can mar you completely. So here she was a victim of more of mental suppression. Okay. Uh, okay. Explain massive weight of uncle's wedding band. Now this expression is symbolic of male authority and power. Now, when you're this thing bound in matrimony, you're bound both physically as well as mentally. And so Aunt Jennifer, when she got married, she was a victim of gender oppression. Whatever she had thought, she never got that. She was a victim of gender oppression. And she feels herself burdened completely by this male dominance. Okay. How is Aunt Jennifer affected by the weight of the matrimony? Now, Aunt Jennifer feels that she is so subjugated, so suppressed, so dominated, and that we can say that she considers herself to be a slave. She compares herself to a slave, and she feels trapped in this gender oppression. And to live in a male-dominated world is not at all easy. And because of this, she has lost her identity also completely. The freedom that she dreams of is expressed only through her art. She cannot express it verbally. And the freedom that she dreams of through her art is itself symbolic of her oppressed self, dominated self. Okay. What is Aunt Jennifer's death symbolic of? Now, the death of Aunt Jennifer is symbolic of her complete suppression to this dominance. Complete submission, surrendering. So she has surrendered completely to this dominance and accepted it. And that is why, it's like dying a death every day, and then finally, even in death, she's completely given up. They did not raise their voice, did not speak against it, because then they were weak both by custom and law also. So they could not raise their issues, and as a result, this shows complete submission or complete surrendering to this suppression. Terrified hands. Terrified hands means that Aunt Jennifer, is so terrified of her husband's dominance that she feels suffocated. She feels as if she is imprisoned, and imprisoned completely, not only in the prison of the family ideology, but also in the prison of ego psychology, and spiritually and mentally. Her hands are terrified even after death, for she could not liberate herself. So the death implies that she could not liberate herself from this dominance, from these chains of mental suppression. Very, very important. Children, understand, one is physical domination, but that is something different. But when you are suppressed mentally and you surrender completely, so the death of Aunt shows that she surrendered completely to this suppression or dominance. What does ringed with ordeals imply? Aunt Jennifer is so victimized by this dominance in her life that even after her death, she continues to be trapped in the struggles of the spirit. She's still trapped in the struggles of the spirit. And though they've not specified what kind of terror she faced and why did she have to go through so much, nothing has been specified. But then maybe this was the contemporary time scenario, that she was a victim of maybe racial, social and gender injustice, because the poet has written for those times. Okay. Is the society in any way affected by Aunt Jennifer's death? No. Why? Because it's a male-dominated society. It shows no concern for Anne's suffering, for her pain, for her ordeals, for her suffocation, for the loss of her freedom. They are not bothered at all. So why would her death affect these people? The society is not affected at all. Explain, the tigers in the panel will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. Now this is symbolic of the dispassionate and unconcerned attitude of the male towards the desire for freedom among women. Aunt Jennifer dreams of her escape in her art, but lands up producing the very image of her suppression. She's created because she also wanted, that was her desire, to be liberated and to be bold, to be confident. But ultimately she created these tigers who were a symbol of terror. And she produced the very same image of suppression. As an expression of the spirit, Aunt Jennifer's art will survive long after her death. But the social society, the social milieu will remain unaffected, arrogant and ferocious. They will continue to be as they are. Okay. Bring out the significance of the use of the word ringed in the poem. Now, the image of a ring is very prominent in this poem, and it has several connotations or several meanings. First of all, the ring refers to the wedding ring, okay, which permanently binds a husband and a wife, okay, into matrimony. But in Aunt Jennifer's case, it proves to be very burdensome and very restrictive, suffocating. There were too many constraints in a married life. Then the third ringed in the third stanza means surrounded or bound by. Or together with mastered, it invokes the image of a circus ring, which Aunt Jennifer married life has proved to be, and her husband is the master, and she is that animal who lives in constant fear and has to obey all the orders. Then ringed also conveys the idea that her personal freedom and expression are curtailed. She's ringed. She doesn't have any personal freedom to either do anything or to express anything. All that is curtailed or curbed. Okay. What ideology does the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers propound? So Aunt Jennifer's Tigers talks about or highlights, it's a feminist poem, so obviously it is very critical of the male world and for terrifying and oppressing women. So it is again against male chauvinism, where women are isolated and exploited, and they compel her to create an alternate world for herself, even though it's through art. Okay. How are genders polarized in the poem? The genders in the poem are shown to be polarized as Aunt Jennifer is totally victimized. She feels the massive weight of the band, the ring on her hand, even in the absence of uncle. Even if he's not around, she still feels that weight and massive. And she fails to liberate herself. That's very important. She fails to liberate herself of a mental suppression, even though uncle is physically absent. Very important. Sometimes you get these kinds of questions. So even in the absence of the uncle, she feels victimized and she feels suppressed, even though physically he is, even when he is not physically around, he is absent. So that is why we say that in death also she was not able to liberate herself, because this was your psychological, your mental suppression, and she went with that mental suppression which would continue. So it would never leave her. Okay. What character traits of Aunt Jennifer come to light in the poem? So Aunt Jennifer is portrayed as a terrified person who is victimized by a domineering husband. She is seen both as a victim and as an oppressor. How? Victim to uncle, and oppressor because she is caged in the prison of her ego psychology and the ideology of the family. So she lets it happen to her. She doesn't revolt. She doesn't find other ways to liberate herself. So the freedom of spirit, which is symbolized by the tigers, is never achieved by her. Even in her art, she could not achieve that. Okay. What different feelings of Aunt Jennifer are revealed in the poem? That Aunt Jennifer, number one, is a victim of the male world. The first stanza expresses her fears, and second, her implied slavery, and the third, the struggle and ordeals of her spirit. Okay. Is Aunt Jennifer able to find a refuge in her art? Yes, she is able to find a refuge in her art because she recoils herself and she goes into her make-believe world of dreams and art. And this art, now this is very important, you get to come across, you must have heard the word before, catharsis, you know. So her art gives her the catharsis to her pent-up feelings, the realization, you know, that she gets, the catharsis to her pent-up feelings and oppressed spirit, you know. So that is a very, very important part. Neither the art nor even her death could liberate her body and spirit from the oppression and terror of the male dominating world around her. But the art was handy because it acted like a catharsis. She was so pent up, she was so filled up, but at least after that she was able to work on the art, though that did not prove to be so fruitful, but still she found catharsis in that act of embroidering those tigers. Okay. I think that's all. I have tried to cover as much as I could. I hope I've been able to reach across, and the question answers will enable you to understand the text a little better. So thank you for watching, and if I've been of some help to you, don't forget to press the like button. Thank you so much. God bless you all.